Taelor Dailey is a great friend of Faith Church, attended here for many years before she moved to Wilmington. Pastor Matt recently reconnected with Taylor and had a conversation with her about the Black Panther. We showed part of this conversation in worship on Sunday, August 4th, but the full conversation with Taylor can be found here.
So, the Black Panther is Prince T'Challa, and the movie was played by Chadwick Boseman. May he rest in peace. He is just taking, his father has just passed. I can't remember the father's name, forgive me. But he is now, since he's the oldest son, next in line to take the throne. And so you come into it already seeing him struggle with his new role. And one of the reasons why Black Panther in general, whether we're talking about the movie that came out in 2018 or the comic book that came out in 1966, it's so groundbreaking because most heroes are not people of color. Most comic book heroes that you see are not people of color, whether that be Black, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. It's usually not people of color. So to finally see somebody like Black Panther, a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not just strong, and courageous, but a very, a kind of character that truly wants to do what's right. The kind of character that stands up for what's right. There's a part in the movie, sorry if I'm spoiling anything for anyone, but there's a part in the movie in the first movie, where he finds out that his father, when his father was alive, he killed his brother and left his nephew there. He just abandoned his nephew there. And when Prince T'Challa found this out, he was very angry. And when he spoke with his father about it, his father said, "That was the truth that I chose to admit." I'll never forget that line because it's a very powerful line, and not necessarily for good reasons, but it's still a very powerful line. It's the truth that I chose to omit. And Prince T'Challa, the Black Panther, he wasn't trying to hear that. He said it was wrong. He said we've let our fear of being discovered cloud our judgment so much that we no longer do what's right anymore. That we turn our back on doing what's right. And it's so refreshing to hear a person of color in a very mainstream, big screen movie talk like that. Because a lot of times we are pinned to stereotypes. Because it's easier, I guess, to keep us in a certain lane. But hearing Black Panther talk about things like that, it's really motivating. And he became something that little Black boys and girls, because of his sister was extremely smart in the movie, a genius even, like past smart, just straight up genius. Little Black boys and Black girls had something to look up to. They didn't have to pretend that when they were being Thor, that Thor's Black, or they didn't have to pretend like Superman was Black so they could be Superman. They could be the Black Panther. They finally saw someone, a hero that stood for what's right, that did the right thing, that went against the grain, even when everybody was telling him, no, don't do that, no, don't do that. If he knew it was right, he did it anyways. They had someone that looked like them to look up to. And that means more than people understand. It means so much more than people understand to have somebody that looks like you being represented in such a powerful role.
Wow.
And it just really means a lot.
And it was awesome that the movie turned out to be such a critical and commercial success. I mean, it made
Mhm.
huge
Mhm.
bank in the states and
Mhm.
around the world, and proved that you know um, a movie featuring a nearly all black cast and a black director,
Yeah. Mhm.
could really
What's
do
his
it.
name? Um, I can't believe I forgot his name.
Is it Ryan
He was the
Coogler?
only, pretty much the only person out of color in it.
Oh
What'd you
yeah,
say?
Andy Serkis. Yeah,
Martin Freeman.
yeah.
Martin Freeman.
Martin Freeman. Yeah, those
Um,
two.
who also is a phenomenal actor. But yeah, to see such a, usually when we're looking at movies with all black cast, and we're talking about things like The Color Purple, or Boys in the Hood,
Right.
or Menace to Society, things like that, which are all excellent movies. I say to everyone out there in the congregation, if you haven't seen any of these movies, they're excellent movies. They're going to make you cry, but watch them anyways. But again, that kind of fits in with the stereotype thing, because they're
Sure.
all about, most of them are about growing up poor and black, growing up poor and black, growing up poor and black. And it's like, that message definitely does need to get out there of what that's like. However, that's not what defines being black. And when you see nothing but movies about all, I mean, excuse me, let me get my words together. When you see movies with all black cast, and the majority of them, 80 to 90% of them, are about growing up poor and black, in your mind, whether you realize it or not, you begin to make that association.
Mhm.
You begin to make that connection. Poor and black, poor and black. So to have the Black Panther come out and be such a success, and they weren't poor and black at all.
Right.
It must have been,
Wakanda is
huh?
this Wakanda where they're from is like this
Mm-hmm.
super
It's extremely wealthy.
technically advanced,
Mm-hmm.
wealthy, powerful
Mm-hmm.
African
Mm-hmm.
superpower that's kind of been hidden from the
Mm-hmm.
world, and
Mm-hmm.
but now is on everybody's radar. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like no
Mm-hmm.
going back, and there's no
It helped change the narrative for us. It helped
yeah,
kind of turn things in a different direction, in the sense of, hey, maybe we don't always have to make movies about black people being poor and struggling and all this. Maybe we
sure,
can make movies about them being successful and being powerful and holding positions of power and positions of importance, and positions that can make a difference in the world. Um, because that's what Black Panther was. I mean, even in the second movie, in the second Black Panther, you see the Queen, Angela Bassett's character, go speak with the United Nations in Switzerland.
hmm
Um, that's that might be a small scene, but that's big. That's
right.
big. That's heavy, and it means a lot. I mean, especially considering what she said when she was there. Um, it's it's big
Yeah.
to have that kind of representation in that type of environment.
And it was, I mean, that movie was so powerful because in between the movies, as you mentioned, Chadwick Boseman's death. I mean, uh,
Mm-hmm.
he died, and
Mm-hmm.
his they didn't recast him.
Mm-hmm. No,
The
they didn't try to
his
recast them.
his
Thank
his
goodness.
absence is hanging so heavy over the second movie, but it's really powerful, and
Mm-hmm.
it was also powerful. Like, it was not known that he was struggling with cancer, or
Yeah.
that was a
Mm-hmm.
very he kept that very private, and
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of a shock to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He was in his 40s, and
Nobody, not, unless you were like extremely close with him, nobody knew that he was sick. So yeah, that was a big shock.
yeah, I thought that was I thought that was handled very powerfully in the second movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Um, so one of the things over the first movie is they can't hide Wakanda anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The his main opponent in the second movie is Killmonger. And what does Killmonger want Wakanda to do now?
Killmonger is his main opponent in the first movie.
Right, yeah.
But Killmonger's point of view, since he was the abandoned nephew that I was referring to earlier when I said that Prince T'Challa's father said he was the truth I chose to admit. Killmonger was the truth that he chose to admit. So you're already kind of starting off. You're already starting off on the wrong foot, the worst foot possible, because you've already started off traumatizing a child. He walks in to find his father dead on the floor, and he sees claw marks in his chest. He's been told about Wakanda his whole life, and that he may or may not be accepted there. And so he gets a huge chip on his shoulder, especially considering when he looks around where he's from, which was Oakland, California in the movie, all he sees is poor and black, what we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
All he sees is people living off of welfare, living from check to check, people getting shot in the street. All he knows is struggle, and to know that so he knows that there are people that look just like him, same skin color as him, that are hiding, that have all the resources to help his community or the black community in general, and they won't do it because they don't want to be discovered. And he hates them for that. And I gotta be honest, even though he went about it the worst way possible, in that specific aspect, like his reasoning behind it, besides the fact that he was holding on to a lot of pain from what happened with his father and his uncle, I agree with. I agreed that Wakanda, because it's almost like what Black Panther said when he was talking to his father, that they let fear guide all their decisions, to the point that they have turned their back on the world, and they have turned their back on the black community. And they did have the resources to help, and not just help the black community, but to help the world. And they chose not to do that. So Killmonger's thing was, now that when he finally took over the throne, he wanted to do what he always felt should have been done, which was sending resources out to the black communities all over the world. However, where he went left with that is he didn't want to just send resources and now everybody's happy and everybody has what they need. He wanted to send like weapons so they could start taking over. So he took it to the extreme.
He wanted the black people of the world to turn the tables on the people who had oppressed them. And
exactly. He wanted black people to just completely take over and topple governments and things of that nature. So he took things way to the extreme. However, again, like I say, the nucleus of what was driving him, which was, it shouldn't just be you guys that have these things. If you guys have all this, then you should use your resources to help others. That in particular, I do agree with. I just don't agree with how he executed it.
Sure.
But yes, Killmonger was just, he was hurt. So from the moment he found his father on the floor, every decision he made was made out of hurt and anger. And every time he made a decision out of hurt and anger, it built up more and more inside of him until he became what he was in the movie.
Sure.
Just blind hatred, just blind rage.
Yeah.
Not really thinking. I mean, you could tell from how he executed it that he actually hadn't really thought of the big picture. That was obvious.
Just totally clouded over by the desire for vengeance and.
Yeah, exactly.
in the end of the movie, what's the choice? Ultimately, T'Challa prevails. He remains the Black Panther. He's the leader.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He seems to recognize some of the validity of what Killmonger was angry about, and the mistakes of his father, the previous king. What's how does it end up, the first movie? What are they going to do now?
So it ends with him taking his sister, telling his sister he's gonna take her to California, and it's kind of a funny part because they're standing in the hood pretty much, and she says, when you told me you were gonna take me to California for the first time, I thought you were gonna take me to like Coachella or Disney World. And he shows her that this is the building, this is where our father killed our uncle and abandoned Killmonger. And he says, I bought this building next to it, and I bought the building over there. And he wanted to turn it into the first like Wakanda outreach center. So as like you were just saying, at the end of the movie, he realized that, like I was saying before, even though he was going about it the wrong way, Killmonger actually did have a point, and that it was time for Wakanda to stop hiding, and it was time for them to start reaching out and using their resources to better the communities around them. So it ended on a very high note, very like hope for the future type of vibe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a great way that the movie ended. I thought it was very inspiring, and I just kind of hope for that sometimes in our human interactions too. Like, how could we? There's no way to repay all the injustices of the past, but how can we chart a real hopeful future together? And so,
I agree.
In the sermon on Sunday, I'm going to talk about Jesus's teachings about not seeking retribution, revenge, all that, and hope it'll speak to people. Well, cool. Well, thank you for your time today, Taylor. I sure appreciate you.
This was fun.
Yeah.
This was cool. I've never really done anything like this before, so this was kind of cool.
Well, I think it's awesome too.